Good afternoon from the kitchen, folks. Today I'm going to attempt to make a nice and Christmassy mulled cider. So here's my key ingredients. The star of the show being cider has to be apples, and I'm using apple juice from concentrate. The turbo cider method. If you don't know about turbo ciders, have a look at the Facebook group Turbo Ciders for All. Lots of good recipes in there, but these just contain apple juice and no nasty additives. I'm aiming to use 4 litres, I might end up using 3, we'll see. Now to get my mulled flavours in there, I've bought this mulled wine spice and it says it makes up to 1 gallon of mulled wine, so I'm just going to chuck the lot in and let it ferment with that in the demijohn. I've got 1 cinnamon stick left from a previous recipe, so I thought I might as well use that up. Some brewing yeast nutrient to feed my yeast of choice today, which is Cross My Loof cider yeast. I've got 200 grams of brewing sugar just to raise the ABV, 3 Yorkshire tea bags and a bit of spring water because I'm going to begin by making some strong tea to get some tannins into the cider. So in goes my spring water, about half a litre, no more than that. And then the gas goes on and the heat goes on and the lid goes on. So while my tea is brewing, let's get the apple juice into the demijohn. So my fermentation vessel of choice today is the good old bog standard demijohn. This is one of my old war horses, which I've had for about 30 odd years. So in goes the apple juice into the demijohn, and this is why it's called a turbo cider, because I mean, let's face it, it's a lot easier than messing around with apples, which I also do incidentally. So I'm probably just going to add 3 litres to begin with, because I want to see how much space I've got when I've added the tea into this. So the tea that I'm going to add into this will have the flavours in it, and I don't want to miss out on the flavours being in the cider. Anyway, just while I'm adding the 3rd litre in here, can I ask you, are you following my Facebook page for Moss Home and Garden? If you're not, please give us a follow, I'd really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do so. It's www.mosshomeandgarden.co.uk. That will take you there. Once you've subscribed, hit the little bell and you'll get notifications when I upload new films. And also, are you following my Insta, which is Stumoss, S-T-U-M-O-S-S. Okay, the tea is boiling, so I can get the bags out now. So I'm just using a potato masher to lift out the tea bags, and then the back of a wooden spoon to squeeze them. That's when you get your tannins. Tannins give it a bit more body, a nicer mouthfeel. You don't need to add them, but I actually prefer it with them in. So now into my tea goes my cinnamon stick. I've just opened the mulled wine spices. They smell absolutely divine. Christmas. These are going in. And I'm just going to leave that to come back to a simmer, and then I'll let it simmer for 5 minutes. Just while I'm waiting for the spices to come to a simmer in the tea, I'm going to add a nice heaped teaspoonful of yeast nutrient into the demijohn. Now some of that's stuck around the funnel, but it doesn't matter, it'll get washed through shortly. One ingredient which I've neglected to mention is pectolase. I want to put a nice heaped teaspoonful of pectolase in, and this will help to break down any cloudiness from the dried fruit that's in the mixed spices. So now my Christmas spiced tea is boiling nicely. Let's turn that down. Give it a stir. Lovely job. I'm now going to add into this the brewing sugar, which is basically dextrose monohydrate. I use brewing sugar because I find it leaves a better, cleaner taste at the end. You don't get that homebrew smell and you don't get that homebrew taste quite as much as you do if you use normal caster sugar. There's very divided opinions on the use of brewing sugar in the online communities. I just say to you, have a go for yourself and decide for yourself. But I find better results with it. Right, the brewing sugar has dissolved instantaneously, which is great. I'm now going to turn this off. I'm now going to leave this to cool for 10 minutes before adding it into the demijohn. I'm just fishing out the cinnamon sticks. I'm putting that in separately because I'm going to put this into the demijohn through the funnel, and the cinnamon stick doesn't fit through the funnel. I know through experience. I want to get the cinnamon stick in. Plop. Right, this has been cooling for 10 minutes. I've already got cold apple juice in the demijohn, and this is an old demijohn. I know it can take a bit of heat, so I'm not worried about pouring this in now. It'll pour through the funnel. Hopefully it'll flush everything through and it won't get stuck, but if it does get stuck, then we'll go to plan B. So the liquid's coming through. There's not much in the way of fruit going through there. So it looks like plan B. So I'm going to take the funnel out and pour the spice back into the saucepan. This is plan B. It's a wider funnel. Now this funnel, actually I have used before and I know it works, but I've got to hold it in place. This is actually a dishwasher salt funnel and it does the job perfectly. I want the spice in the cider. I want it to infuse big time. I'm going to leave the spice in the cider for at least a week and then I'm going to rack it at that point. It smells wonderful, honestly it does. I'm really looking forward to trying this. Right, let's crack on. So I've got a nice bit of headspace just there. I'm going to top this up now with my final litre of apple juice. So in this goes. And in fact I'm just going to use it to wash the inside neck of the demijohn as well, because there's bits of spice stuck on there. Fruit spice, not the illegal kind. And I'm overfilling my demijohn on purpose. I know it's overfilled. I'm going to pour some out now to take the gravity, and I'm also going to use a blow-off pipe for the first few days. Okay, in this goes. Ooh, a little bit more than I anticipated putting in there, but it's fine. And as you can see, I've now got a little bit more headspace for the krausen. It might not build a big krausen, although I suspect with all that fruit material in there, it could do. I want to take the original gravity, but this is just a little bit warm, so I'm going to pop this in the fridge for 10-15 minutes and then I'll take it afterwards. So just while I'm waiting for the liquid in the hydrometer to cool, I'm going to add my yeast. So this is the Cross My Loof cider yeast. There's the equivalent of about a teaspoon of it gone in there. Basically half of one of these packets. I'm now just going to give it a little swish around. I want the yeast to mix in, and believe you me, the yeast is going to enjoy this. All that nutrient, fruitiness, sugar, and it is warm. It's definitely going to have a good time. And there's Poppy. Hello, Poppy. So welcome to the utility room. Let's have a look at the cider. So here it is. It's now in the demijohn. It's connected to a blow-off pipe, and the blow-off pipe is going into my flat bottom Firmzilla. It's just got some water and sanitizer in there, keeping it clean. And I'm going to wait now for the activation of the yeast and the fermentation to begin. So when the yeast begins to eat the sugar, it creates alcohol, and a byproduct is carbon dioxide, which will go up the pipe and in there. Now the reason I'm using a blow-off pipe is because I've filled this a lot and it forms something called a krausen. That's the foamy head you get on top. If the krausen rises, it will go up the blow-off pipe and into there and not do any damage. If it's in an airlock, it can sometimes mess your airlocks up and just be a bit of a pain. So it's easier to start for a few days with this setup than it is to be messing around with airlocks. Okay, I'm just going to take the original gravity of this brew. It's nice and buoyant, and the original gravity is 1.070 1070. That's just about it from me for now. I'm still waiting for fermentation to begin. I'll give you an update when that happens. Hey from the kitchen, folks. It's a mulled cider update. Let's have a look at it. So it's been in the demijohn for 10 days. It looks good. It's bubbling really steadily. There's a lot of good fermentation happening. But today I want to rack it off and get it away from the fruit now. It's been in here with the fruit long enough, and I think if I leave it longer with that, it might start to give it some off flavours. So I'm going to rack it from here into a clean fermentation vessel and top it up with some apple juice. So I think rather than siphoning, I'm going to try pouring it through this strainer and a funnel into this demijohn. I'll see what happens. I mean, it literally still smells wonderful like a Christmas market, so I have got some high hopes for this. There is a distinct possibility that the fermentation will abruptly cease. And if that happens, I'll have to deal with it. But I'm hoping that it will carry on. Okay, I've been going quite a while and I'm nearly there. I'm just encouraging the last dregs of juice to come through. As you can see, the strainer is nice and packed with all that material, which is now not in the liquid. And that's the last of the liquid out of the demijohn. Now, believe it or not, everything that's in this strainer, I'm actually going to put back in this demijohn because I'm going to distill a winter vodka and I want it to sit on this fruit because this won't take the flavour of the vodka like it could this, because the vodka's not fermented, it's already fermented. It's just going to flavour the vodka with the fruit flavour and the spices, and that'll be really nice. That'll be in a separate film, so watch out for it. So I think I've got just about everything out of that I'm going to get. So at this point, I need to take what's called the interim gravity to see what the alcohol by volume is so far. Now what's in my hydrometer tube isn't going to go back into the demijohn, and I've hopefully got a litre of space there. So the interim gravity for this brew is currently 1.020, 1020. So I've got a fresh litre of apple juice from concentrate, which I'm now going to add in, and hopefully this will fill the demijohn right to the top. I'm not expecting any krausen really after this. It makes working out the alcohol by volume a little bit more complicated because you've got to do some maths when you add extra liquid in, but I'm going to go through that with you. Perfect. Couldn't have asked for better. So the airlock goes back in. I've immediately got positive pressure, so hopefully that means that fermentation will continue, because this still has got quite a way to go. Anyway, cheers folks, I want to see what this tastes like now. Wow. The winter spices are, they don't cut through the apple, they punch you in the mouth. That is brilliant. That really is like a real mulled cider. Fantastic. Really, really nice, very tasty. Still quite medium as well, not dry. Hopefully it will retain sort of a medium to medium dry level. But obviously the fermentation needs to continue, so it could get drier. So now I've diluted this with the litre of apple juice, I just need to work out what the gravity is going forward so I can work out the final ABV. It was on 1.020, and in fact it's still very, very similar to that. It's on 1.022 now, 1022 going forward. Okay, it's now time for a bit of maths to work out some gravities and some alcohol by volumes. So with the aid of Microsoft PowerPoint, let us proceed. So the alcohol by volume, the ABV after racking, is worked out the standard way. I take the original gravity of 1.070 and the interim gravity that I took of 1.020. So I deduct from original gravity the interim gravity, multiply it by 131.25, and that comes out at 6.56%. So that's what the percentage was before I added the litre of apple juice. Now, I need to work out what the diluted alcohol by volume is now after I've added the litre of apple juice. So the demijohn holds 1 gallon, which is 4.54 litres. I added an extra litre of apple juice, it filled the demijohn, and that equals 22% of the cubic volume of the demijohn. The equation to work this out is, how did I get to that 22%? Is 1 divided by 4.54, so 1 litre of apple juice divided by 4.54, which is the capacity of the demijohn, times 100. That was 22%. So I've therefore diluted the 6.56% ABV by 22% by adding that litre of apple juice. Hope you're following me? So 22% of 6.56 is 1.44. And I work that out by going 6.56 divided by 100 times 22. And that gives me 1.44. So I now need to deduct 1.44 from 6.56 to tell me that after I'd added the apple juice, the alcohol by volume of the cider must was 5.12%. So the final ABV at the end of the brew will be calculated by taking the restarting gravity of 1.022. So that was after I added the apple juice and I took the gravity again, it was 1.022. And then I deduct from that the final gravity, whatever that is. Now I won't know that until the end of the brew, and multiply that figure by 131.25. That will give me the ABV of the secondary part of the fermentation, so after racking. The final ABV will be calculated by adding the diluted ABV of 5.12% to the ABV of the secondary fermentation. So whatever that is, plus 5.12% will tell me what the cider percentage is at the end of the brew. Hope you followed me on that. Let's see what happens. Okay, so here is my mulled cider now. You can see it's got a very nice, delicate Krausen. That isn't really going to grow much bigger. Bubblers going. I'm now going to leave this for 2 weeks before deciding whether it's time to clear or to bottle. So I'll catch you then. Good evening from the kitchen, folks. It's my mulled cider bottling day. Let's have a look at it. So here it is. It's not really clear, but I'm not bothered. It's a mulled cider. I'm not bothered about it being actually clear, this one. I think it sort of suits the winterness of it to keep it as is. If I was doing this in the daytime, you would be able to see a little bit of clarity behind it. But I'm quite happy with it as it is. I'm not going to try and clear it artificially because I want it to get a fizz in some of the bottles. Now I'm saying a fizz in some of the bottles because I'm going to do 4 sparkling ones and then whatever's left I'm going to leave still. And I'm going to do that as a warmed cider like you'd have mulled wine warm. So I'm going to try it both ways. So cold and sparkling and then flat and warm. So for my 4 sparklers, I'm going to put this much priming sugar in each one. It represents a generous heaped teaspoonful. And the priming sugar is what will help it to be sparkling because within the cider itself just there's still a little bit of yeast floating around. And when it finds this sugar, it'll have a little bit of a nice time. There'll be a bit more of a fermentation, a tiny fractional fermentation, not enough to significantly change the alcohol by volume, but that will create CO2 as a byproduct, and as the pressure builds up from the CO2, we get fizz. Fingers crossed. So these 4 around the edge here are going to be my sparklers. I'm not quite sure how many bottles I'm going to get out of this. I suspect I might get 5.5, so in which case I might end up with 2, which are going to be flat ones. Let's see. So it's bung out. We'll pop the siphoning tube in, and the tube is being held in place with this nice and handy clip at the top just here. The bottom of the tube is there. It's just above the sediment line. The sediment is very flat. There's a tiny amount. So I'm probably about 5 ml above it. I will get some on the first bit that comes out, but that doesn't matter because the first bit that comes out will go into the hydrometer tube. Let's ding dang do it. Massive smell of the mulled spices. Really pleased with that. Yeah, really, really good. So I'm on to my first of the flat ones, and I suspect I'm only going to get one actually looking at this. And there we go, bubbles in the siphoning tube. That tells us that this is over. And if I take what's in the siphoning tube, I can just about fill that bottle. Right, I can't count. I thought I'd got 5 bottles. I've actually got 6. I've got 4 sparkling and 2 still, so I'm really pleased with that. I'm going to take the final gravity for this brew. See where this sinks to. It's looking healthy. And the final gravity is exactly 1.000. Okay, it's time to work out the final alcohol by volume. So if you remember, the restarting gravity was 1.022. This is since I racked it and put the apple juice in. So I take the restarting gravity of 1.022. I deduct from that the final gravity of 1.000, which equals 0.022, and then I multiply this by 131.25, and that gives me an alcohol by volume of 2.8875. Now, I need to add this to the 5.12 that was already there from the first fermentation. So I add to this 5.12, and this means my final alcohol by volume for this brew is 8% exactly. I'm more than happy with that. Okay, I need to stick corks and cages in the bottles. I've separated the two that I'm going to do as still ones. I'm still going to put corks and cages in because just in case there is any tiny more fermentation, the cage is a good safety feature to have. So I've got my corks, or I should say bungs, they're plastic bungs, softening in hot water. Makes them more malleable, and then just give them a shake, get it on the top and push. So that's 1 still one and 2 still ones. And yes, I should have put my glove on because it does hurt my hand. I'm just going to do the sparkling ones now, and I'm going to keep them over this side of the kitchen so I don't confuse them when it comes to labelling. Up, went everywhere. Just got to get the last of my bungs in. I think I'll use the jumper. Oh, there's always one. Right. Don't tell the missus. She's just gone to the gym. I'm going to do it my way. So we cover the end up like this. Find the right part of the wall where it's solid. And we go 1, 2, 3. Bingo. Our little secret. I've got the bungs in place, and as I alluded to earlier, cages need to go on. It's just to keep the bungs in place, particularly in the ones that have got sugar in for priming, because when it does prime and when the pressure builds up from the CO2, the bung does become a missile if you don't secure it with a cage. I've got all these to do. I'll be back to you shortly. Okay, so the ones with a sparkle have got solid tops on the cages, and the ones that I'm going to have flat have got open tops on the cages. That's an easy way for me to understand which is which. I'm just going to give these a rinse now under my tap because they're a bit sticky and I want to label them, and I don't want them being sticky when I label them. Okay, I've got my labels made up using a very simple Microsoft Word template. So I'm just labelling my bottles. I like them to look nice. It's obviously good to know what you're drinking. And there they are. Okay, welcome to my conditioning shelves. So these are temperature controlled shelves. I've got a little thermometer just there. It's connected to a thermostat plug just there. When the temperature drops below 19.5, it turns the flat heater on against the wall at the back of the shelves. And when it gets to 20.5, it turns it off again. It's on quite a lot at this time of year because we are getting towards winter. We're still in autumn, but this is where my mulled cider is going to condition for the next 4 weeks. So this is simply the sparkling mulled cider that I'm putting here. I'm not putting the still mulled cider up here because that doesn't need to condition in just the same way. So the next film that you see from me will be in about a month's time when it comes to opening and tasting. Catch you then, folks. Good evening from the kitchen, folks. It's my mulled cider opening night. As ever, I'm really excited about this one, and this is a different kind of cider because this is the still one which I'm having warm. Now, I still corked and caged it just in case there was any further fermentation, but I didn't add any priming sugar to this one because if I'd done that, obviously it would have been sparkling, and I'm trying to avoid that because I want to warm it up. I will add sugar to it for taste once it's warmed up. So this is the first non-sparkling cider that I've intentionally made. Yeah, I have made some flat ones by accident. Hopefully there'll be no pop, let's see. No, not really a pop that's okay. It smells absolutely gorgeous. Honestly, I cannot believe how nice that smells. It is the smell of Christmas markets. It's taking me right back to Dresden in Germany. Oh, wish I was there this year. So I need to warm up my cider and I'm going to do so in a saucepan. So just let that pour in. So there it is. I'll put the heat on. The noise that you can hear in the background is my oven, which has got tonight's biryani currently cooking. Okay, so as well as wanting this warm, I also want it to be a little bit fruity, so I'm going to chop an orange up to go in there. So I'm just going to take my orange and cut it into thin slices. Okay, so there's my orange. Into the mulled cider it goes. I can see this is getting warm because there are bubbles forming, and I don't want this to boil because that will boil the alcohol off. So it's now time to turn this off. Right, as you can see, I've got my appropriate mug. I'm going to pour some of this in. Nice and steamy. Want to make sure I get some fruit in, so in it goes. So here's what I've got so far. Taste test. Wow, it's extremely Christmassy flavoured, but it's far too dry. When you warm fruit up, it goes dry. So I think I need to add some sugar. So there's a generous heaped teaspoonful of sugar gone in. In fact, I'm going to add that and another half. Just give it a little stir around. Okay, cheers folks. Taste test. That's it. With the sugar, that is absolutely spot on. It's beautiful. It's so Christmassy. It's really taking me to the Christmas markets, this. I wish I was walking around them now covered in snow. But this is actually wonderful. It's got a beautiful flavour with all the herbs and spices from the mulled spices in it. And it was so easy to make. A turbo cider with mulled spices. Bob's your uncle. Anyway, I've got the other one to open, which is to be served cold and hopefully, fingers crossed, sparkling. I've got that one chilling in the fridge. So I'm going to finish this off first and then we'll try the other one. So catch you in a bit, folks. Good evening from the kitchen, folks. I'm back again with my mulled sparkling, fingers crossed, sparkling cider. Right, let's see if it's going to be a ho 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 or a bar humbug. Am I going to get a pop? Oh ho ho ho! Get in there. Right, let's have a look at this bad boy. Oh, yes. Come on. There's nought up with that. That's a cracker, that is. Have a listen. It smells wonderful. It actually smells quite orangey, if anything. But no, if you deeply smell it in, then you get the cloves, you get the cinnamon. Yeah, right, down the hatch. Very, very nice. Now, slightly drier than anticipated. It's kind of like it's between a medium dry and a dry. It's not completely dry, but I was trying to go for sort of like medium to medium dry, and it's definitely just beyond medium dry. Now, when it goes in, you definitely get that cider bite, but then all of the spices and so forth from the mulled spice, just, you know, it's just there. It's very, very nice indeed. Really, really seasonal. Smells great. It doesn't look too bad, but it tastes lovely. Yeah, I would have liked it to have been slightly sweeter, as in, you know, medium to medium dry, but I'm more than happy with it how it is. I'll definitely drink this. It's a really good Christmassy drink, and I'm going to enjoy it. So cheers, folks. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I'll catch you on the next brew. The film that you've just watched is a Moss Home and Garden production. You can find more by going to www.mosshomeandgarden.co.uk. I'd just like to say thank you very much for supporting my YouTube channel and for watching my films. It really is very much appreciated. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to my YouTube channel in order to receive future updates about the home and garden films which I upload. You can find my YouTube channel by going to www.mosshomeandgarden.co.uk. Please click on the red subscribe button. When you've done that, a little bell will appear. If you press that also, then you'll get future updates about the films which I upload. If you like my films, if you like my style of filming, then you might also like my travel channel, which you will find by going to youtube.com/Stuart Moss or type in www.mosstravel.tv. Again, if you could subscribe to that channel, it would be hugely appreciated. If you'd like to get Moss Home and Garden updates on Facebook, then please open Facebook and do a search for Moss Home and Garden, and you will find the page. If you like the page, then you will get future updates on there. And if you'd like to connect on Instagram for home, garden and travel photography, as well as some stories, then my username is StuMoss, STUMOSS. If you'd like to connect on Twitter, then my username is @StuartMoss. And if you'd like to contact me about film usage or any other issue, please just email me on stewmosshomegarden@gmail.com. Once again, thank you very much for supporting my channel, for watching my films. I do appreciate it. I'd just like you all to have a great day.